Hey there, tonight we're stepping into a world without safety nets. A time when fortune vanished overnight and survival became a full-time job. This isn't just a chapter in a dusty textbook. This is life during the Great Depression, raw, unfiltered, and heavier than it looks in black and white photos. So if you're tucked in, maybe flip your pillow to the cool side, let the hum of the fan lull you, and take a breath. Because where we're going, even hope had to stretch its legs. Welcome to America, 1930. Let's begin. You wake up to silence, not peaceful silence, not birdsong and gentle sunshine. This is the kind of silence that hangs in the air like a bad omen. There's no car rumbling down the street, no factory whistle, no newspaper thudding at your doorstep. Because the factory's closed, the newspaper's half the size, and your dad's Model T hasn't had gas in weeks. The air smells like old coffee and damp wallpaper. You are in a small apartment above a boarded-up storefront. The paint is peeling, the floor creaks like it's trying to complain. The calendar says it's Tuesday, but days have lost meaning since your father lost his job in '29. He used to wear a tie. Now he wears the same shirt every day, collar fraying, dignity hanging on by a button. You glance around. Your little brother's still asleep on the couch, more springs than cushion now, and your older sister is already at the window, watching people line up for bread like it's a parade of ghosts. She is quiet. Everyone is breakfast. If there is any, it's dry toast or yesterday's oatmeal, now grey and congealed into something that defies classification. You're not ungrateful. You are just tired of pretending it's filling. Your mother still sets the table, like manners can make food appear. She is already dressed in her best. Because looking respectable is the last defense against despair. Outside, the world feels wrong. Banks are closed. Stores are shuttered. For rent signs bloom like weeds in every window. A man is selling apples on the corner. He used to be a teacher. Now he's bartering Granny Smiths for nickels and a smile. You don't look too long. Eye contact feels like a transaction you can't afford. You hear someone shouting a block away. It could be a protest, could be nothing. Lately, even silence feels political. Everyone's trying to stay calm, but underneath it all is this grinding, anxious hum, like a broken radio that won't turn off. It's the sound of people waiting for something. A job, a miracle, an explanation. You don't know it yet, but you're living through the single worst economic disaster in modern American history. And there's no script, no bailout, no tutorial. You're in it. No one's coming to fix it by morning. So you pull on your shoes, heels worn thin, laces frayed, step outside, and join the line for whatever comes next. Welcome to the 1930s, where nothing is certain except the hunger in your stomach and the grit in your soul. And this is just the beginning. You made it out the door, barely. The street is cold, even when it isn't. Cold in the way that settles into your sleeves, your breath, your bones. The line at the bakery stretches down the block. No one's talking. No one has the energy, just the quiet shuffle of feet on pavement, the occasional cough, and the weight of empty pockets hanging in the air like fog. You clutch your last few cents, thumb rubbing over the edges like it might turn into more if you just believe hard enough. But you don't believe in much these days. Not in money, not in breakfast, not even in luck back home. Your mother's sitting at the table, staring into a cup of weak coffee like it might give her answers. She's already added water to stretch the grounds 3 days in a row, and the result tastes like hot sorrow. She doesn't drink it for comfort. She drinks it because it's something warm. Your brother asks if there's toast. You all pretend not to hear him. You think about saying yes, just out of habit, but lies cost energy, and you need to save that for the rest of the day. Your sister reaches into a tin and pulls out the last heel of bread. Dree, brittle, curling at the edges, like it's trying to disappear. She breaks it in half. One piece for him. You look away, embarrassed to feel jealous. If you're lucky, there is a soup kitchen nearby. Not really soup, more like hot water with dreams in it, some vegetables. Maybe a bean, a hint of flavor that lingers just long enough to tease you. You stand in line with strangers who aren't strangers anymore. You've seen them here every morning. They used to be shopkeepers, factory workers, students. Now they're just people waiting for the same thing you are. Calories that don't come with shame. The volunteers smile like they've rehearsed it. Their hands move fast. Bread. Bowl. Next. Bread. Bowl. Next. It's not about taste. It's about survival. You don't savor it. You just eat it and try not to look grateful or desperate. Both are dangerous. Some mornings, you skip breakfast entirely. Not because you are strong, because there isn't any. You say you are not hungry even when you are. You let the ache in your stomach settle until it becomes part of the background noise. Hunger doesn't roar anymore. It hums, a low, persistent hum, like the sound of fraying nerves and worn shoes on concrete. It's always there, even when you try not to notice it. Back in the apartment, your mother washes the coffee cup, the empty bowl, the knife that didn't cut anything. She does it slowly, like cleaning might conjure food out of thin air. You sit by the window and watch the street. Watch the bakery line grow. Watch a man sweep the sidewalk like it matters. It doesn't, but it's something to do. Something to make it look like life is still moving. Like breakfast might happen again tomorrow. Maybe the bowl from breakfast, or whatever passed for it, has been cleaned and placed upside down to dry next to the spoon. That's seen more rinse water than food this week. Your brother is curled up on the couch with a blanket that's mostly holes. Your sister's tracing invisible lines in the condensation on the window. You need to get out. There's nothing in the apartment but silence and sighs. So you step outside, hoping for something different. But out here, nothing's different either. Just more empty storefronts, more men on corners, more women pretending not to worry themselves sick. And down the street, past where the streetcars used to run, and the newspaper boys used to shout, there's a new neighborhood rising out of nothing. It's not really a neighborhood. It's a collection of boxes, tar paper, scraps of metal, stolen wood hammered into 4 walls if you're lucky. 3 walls and a prayer if you're not. They call it a Hooverville, named for the president. Everyone blames, but no one sees. It used to be a city park. Now it's a city of ghosts, thrown together with scavenged nails and desperation. Kids play in the mud with sticks because toys are a memory. Parents sit on overturned crates, smoking if they have it, staring at the skyline like it betrayed them. You walk through slowly. These people aren't strangers. They're the tailors, the grocers, the teachers, the veterans. Some of them used to live on your block. Now they live under corrugated roofs that leak when it rains and freeze solid at night. One man nods to you as you pass. His coat is 2 sizes too big. Held together with safety pins, you recognize him. He was your dentist. Now he's crouched beside a tin can fire, trying to keep his fingers warm. A year ago, he wore gloves and carried a leather briefcase. Now his shoes don't match, and he's not even the worst off. The smell out here is a mix of smoke, mud, and wet wood that never quite dries. You see a woman stirring something in a pot over an open flame. It smells like hope. You ask her what it is. She says, "Whatever we could find." Then she offers you some. You decline because you're not that far gone. Not yet, but the line between you and her feels thinner than it should, like one bad week would be enough. One missed paycheck, one more shut door. You don't stay long. The shame clings to your clothes like the smoke. You go home, back to your apartment, that feels more like a luxury hotel now. It has walls that meet the ceiling, a toilet that flushes, a bed that's only yours. But you don't feel better, not really, because you saw it. And you know it's not just your family falling, it's everyone slowly, quietly, equally. Even the ones who once cleaned your teeth or fixed your shoes. Even the ones who used to live 3 floors above you. This thing doesn't care what you used to be. It only cares how long you can hold on. You sit on the edge of your bed, if you're lucky enough to have one, and stare at the pile of clothes that used to mean something. A wool coat that doesn't button anymore, hand me. Down slacks with knees worn thin. A shirt so threadbare it practically qualifies as a net. You pick the least wrinkled outfit, which means the one that looks only slightly lived in rather than recently excavated. The collar is fraying, the cuffs are stained. You put it on anyway because what choice do you have? This is the depression, and fashion has officially joined the unemployment line. Outside, the wind bites through your sleeves because the lining in your jacket gave up sometime last winter. You wrap your arms tight and keep walking, hoping to pass for someone who still owns a decent closet. But you're not fooling anyone. Nobody is. Not anymore. The sidewalks are a parade of patched trousers, mismatched shoes, and socks with more holes than thread. Women walk by in faded dresses turned inside out to hide the stains. Men wear suits with the shine worn off and shoes with cardboard insoles. No one says anything. It is not embarrassment. It is normalization. When everyone's struggling, no one bothers pretending they aren't. You pass a boy no older than 10, sleeves rolled up on a shirt that once belonged to his father. His belt is a piece of rope. His face is smudged, but he holds his head high, like pride is the one accessory he can still afford. Next to him, a girl in a coat 3 sizes too big clutches, a pair of gloves with the fingertips cut off. Not by design, by need, her shoes don't match. One is a boot, one is something trying to be. No one stares, no one points. You just nod, because she's trying. You're all trying. At home, your mother is hunched over a mending pile that never shrinks. She's got a needle in one hand, a sigh in the other. She's patching the same hole she patched last week. The fabric is giving up, but she isn't. You remember when she used to sew dresses for special occasions? Now she turns old curtains into skirts and old skirts into rags. She still pins her hair up in the morning, still dabs a bit of powder on her cheeks. She says it's important to look proper. Even when the pantry's empty, especially when it's empty. Your father polishes his shoes every night, even though the soles are held together with glue and prayer. He does it with focus, like if the shoes shine enough, maybe someone will hire the man wearing them. Maybe it's superstition. Maybe it's hope. Maybe there's no difference anymore. Fashion hasn't disappeared. It's just changed. Style is now survival. Beauty is making do. And dignity is wearing your only coat with pride, even if it smells like last week's dinner and last year's rain. Because in the Great Depression, looking respectable might be the only thing you still have control over. And some mornings, that has to be enough. The dress your mother stitched from curtain fabric rustles as she moves through the room. But she doesn't say anything. She doesn't have to. You already know what she's doing by the rhythm of her footsteps. She's rearranging chairs, adjusting blankets, trying to make space in a space that never had enough. Your little brother is sprawled out on the floor with a pillow folded in half, pretending it's comfortable. Your sister has turned the corner near the stove into her unofficial bedroom. Her blanket is tacked to the wall with rusted nails and blind optimism. It doesn't stop the drafts. It barely stops the noise. But she says it helps. You remember when you had a room of your own, a door you could close, a bed with sheets that smelled like sun-dried cotton, and not like everyone's breath from the night before. Back then, you could sit in silence without someone coughing 6 inches from your shoulder or stepping over your legs on the way to the bucket. Now, your family shares 1 room and 2 dreams, warmth and space. And neither seems possible anymore. The bathroom is down the hall, shared with other tenants. 5 families, 1 toilet. It's always occupied, always creaking, always smelling like someone else's bad luck. You learn to wait, you learn to hold it, you learn to stop expecting solitude. Even washing your face is a performance. A lineup of strangers brushing teeth side by side, shoulders hunched, eyes down, as if making eye contact might make this humiliation worse. You change clothes in corners, under blankets, behind turned backs. You fold your shirt slowly, trying to avoid touching the wall because it's cold and cracked and flakes, like old paint made of dust and resentment. You sleep with your coat tucked under your knees to stay warm, because the 1 blanket you share with your brother only covers you if no one moves. He always moves. Every night someone kicks someone else. Someone snores, someone cries. No one ever says anything in the morning. You just pretend it didn't happen. Conversations are whispered. Arguments happen with tight jaws and sideways glances. You don't shout anymore. There is no room for that. Everyone hears everything. You know what the couple downstairs fights about. You know when Mrs. Lang's baby has colic. You know the man across the hall talks in his sleep, and sometimes says things like debt and Jesus in the same breath. And you know they all know your business too. It's a 2-way street, a thin-walled, drafty, overpopulated street with no off-ramps. You want silence. Not the kind outside that feels like hunger. The real kind. The kind that's quiet and gentle and private. But that kind of silence is a luxury now. Like eggs or curtains that match, or 4 walls without someone else on the other side. In the Great Depression, you learn to live loud in a quiet way. You learn to make space with your body because you can't make it with your floor plan and privacy. That's just a word for people who still have extra rooms. You wake up before the sun because someone rolled over in their sleep and yanked the blanket off you. Again, your feet are cold, your back aches from the floor, or maybe from just being alive. You shift quietly, careful not to wake anyone, because mornings are the only time that feel vaguely your own. Even then, it is borrowed. You dress in yesterday's clothes because that is all there is. The job search starts early, not because it helps, but because standing in line at dawn feels slightly better than standing in it at noon, and because pretending there is something to find feels better than admitting there isn't. Out on the street, the city's already moving. Slowly, but moving, a long, shuffling dance of desperate people walking nowhere in particular, with just enough purpose to make it look like they have somewhere to be. Men in jackets too thin for the cold. Women holding children too tired to cry. Everyone carrying invisible signs that say, "We'll do anything." The factory you once passed every day is still there, but the windows are boarded up now. Inside, the machines are silent. Dust covers the conveyor belts. There's a sign on the door that says closed until further notice. It's been there for 9 months. The notice never comes. You head to the employment office, even though yesterday they turned away 50 people before lunch. Doesn't matter. You go anyway. Hope runs on broken logic. You wait your turn, listening to the man behind the desk call names with a voice like static. When it's finally your turn, he barely looks up. He already knows. So do you. "Nothing today," he says. "Check back tomorrow." It's the 5th tomorrow this week. You leave with empty hands and an emptier stomach. You see a man on the corner offering shoe shines for a nickel. He looks like he hasn't eaten since Wednesday. He's got polish on his sleeves and sadness in his posture. No one's buying. Another man offers to fix radios. Except no one's listening to them anymore because electricity is a luxury, And news only makes things worse. You think about trying to sell something, old books, maybe a coat, but there's no one left to buy, everyone's broke, everyone's selling, no one's spending. You take the long way home, not because there's anything to see, but because going back to a room full of other people waiting for nothing feels heavier than walking. You pass the train tracks, see a few boys hopping cars headed west. They're chasing rumors of jobs in California, or maybe they're just running. You wonder if they'd let you join, you wonder if it matters. By the time you get home, your mother's staring at the stove again, like she might summon dinner by willpower alone. You shake your head before she can ask. She doesn't say anything. She just nods, and you both pretend like that's enough. Because it has to be. In the Great Depression, you work just as hard looking for a job as you once did having one. Only now the paycheck is silence. Your mother counts coins at the table like she's trying to summon them. 3 nickels, 1 penny, a button that somehow got in the mix. You all stare at it like maybe, just maybe, it'll turn into something spendable, but it doesn't. It's still a button. And the money, if you can even call it that, isn't enough for anything, except reminding you how broke you really are. Your father sits quietly across from her, staring at a spot on the wall, as if it owes him an explanation. It doesn't. The wall is just peeling paint and yesterday's hope. After another long day of job hunting that ended, like the rest in disappointment and sore feet, you've come home to face the arithmetic of despair. Rent is due again. The landlord stopped bothering with politeness a long time ago. Last week he slipped a note under the door that just said, nothing else, no greeting, no signature, just the question. And you knew exactly what it meant. You haven't paid him in 2 months, and your father's talking in his sleep again. About debt, about shame, about leaving in the night. Money used to mean something, a wage, a goal, a plan. Now, it's a ghost. It drifts in and out of conversation like a sore tooth. The banks are closed, or they might as well be. One collapse after another. You remember the headlines, people pounding on locked doors, screaming to be let in, while their life savings vanished behind marble walls and silent tellers. Some jumped from windows. Others just sat down on the curb and cried. You were there, not on the ledge, just across the street, watching now. No one trusts banks. No one trusts the mattress either. But it's where you keep what little you have left. $1 hidden inside a sock, hidden inside a shoe, hidden under the bed. Your own personal Fort Knox, guarded by your brother's snoring and your mother's prayers. But $1 doesn't stretch like it used to. Milk costs too much. Bread is thinner. Meat is a holiday myth. Prices wobble like a drunk man, up, down, sideways. You don't know what anything costs anymore until someone tells you it's out of reach. Sometimes you trade instead, an old coat for firewood, a day's labor for a sack of potatoes. Once your sister traded a hairbrush for eggs, she cried afterward. Not because of the brush, because the eggs were rotten. It's not just poverty, it's insult, the kind of insult that sits under your skin and whispers that maybe you did something wrong, that maybe this is your fault, but you didn't cause this. None of you did. The market fell, and it crushed everyone under it, rich, poor, and everyone trying to pretend they were one and not the other. Now you count coins and hope the math doesn't betray you again. Because in the Great Depression, money hasn't just lost value, it's lost meaning. And all you're left holding is a button. You thought it couldn't get worse. And then the sky changed. Not in a poetic way. Not in the way books talk about sunsets or the heavens parting. No, this was the kind of change that made you forget what color used to be. The air turned brown, the sun turned red, and the ground under your feet began to vanish. one gust at a time. You had already lost jobs, money, comfort, and pride. Now nature came for the rest. If you lived in the Midwest, the farm was everything. Even when money dried up, the land at least gave you something back. A potato, a squash, a handful of corn. But then the drought came, 1 year, 2. Then more, the soil cracked, the grass withered. The wind arrived like a warning, and then one morning you opened the door and there was no outside, just dust. A wall of it, thick, angry, alive. It roared like a train and scratched like sandpaper. It filled your nose, your mouth, your ears. It got inside your clothes, your cupboards, your lungs, and it didn't stop. You tried everything. Nailed sheets over windows, wet towels under doors. You tied rags over your face and told the children to stay low. You watched your crops disappear, not to theft or rot, but to the sky. Entire rows of food ripped from the earth and swallowed by the wind. You woke up with dirt in your teeth. You coughed and didn't stop. Your animals died standing. The water dried up. The food ran out. The farm stopped being a home and became a burial ground for hope. And still you waited. Because what else could you do? You didn't want to leave. The land had been in your family for generations. Your father broke this ground with his bare hands. Your mother canned peaches in the kitchen, now buried under dust. Leaving felt like betrayal, but staying started to feel like suicide. So you joined the stream of people heading west. Not for gold or glory, just work, just food, just something different than suffocation. You packed what you could, a pillow, a Bible, a tin of crackers. You strapped furniture to the roof, stuffed kids into the back, and drove until the car gave up. Then you walked. Dust still clung to everything you owned, like it was following you, like it knew you had no place left to run. California sounded like salvation. But when you got there, the signs told you to go back. No jobs, no handouts, no Okies. You weren't a person anymore. You were a warning, an inconvenience, a problem. They saw your patched up car, your sunken eyes, your calloused hands, and they turned away. Back in the cities, people lined up for bread. Out here, you lined up for water. Either way, the rules were the same. Wait quietly, take what you're given, and try not to need too much, because in the Great Depression, even the land said no, and the sky made sure you heard it. If you were a kid during the Great Depression, no one asked what you wanted to be when you grew up. That question belonged to the old world, the one with money in it. Now it was simpler. You either helped or you didn't. And helping meant working. If you were big enough to hold a broom, a shovel, or a bucket, you were big enough to earn or try to. Childhood didn't disappear. It just got repurposed, back in the dust bowl. Maybe you helped your parents pack up the last cracked dishes before the wind took the house. In the city, maybe you helped watch your baby sister while your mother walked 5 miles to wait in line for beans. Maybe you sold newspapers on the corner, shouting headlines you didn't understand with a voice you hadn't learned to trust yet. Maybe you shined shoes for men who had nothing left to tip you, but a smile and a story they couldn't finish. Whatever it was, it came early. You stopped being a child, not with a celebration, but with a sigh. If you were lucky, you still went to school. Not because it led to anything anymore, but because it kept you off the streets. It gave your parents a few hours to breathe. Your teacher was tired. Everyone was. The books were old, the paper torn, the pencils worn down to useless nubs. But the routine felt like safety. One desk for each child, even if a chalkboard with words that didn't talk about banks or soup lines. You learned with your stomach growling. You sat next to kids who hadn't eaten since yesterday, who wore the same socks all week and smelled like wood smoke and rain. You didn't tease them, you understood. Sometimes school wasn't an option. Sometimes you stood outside a warehouse at dawn, hoping someone would pick you to carry boxes for a nickel. Sometimes you worked in junkyards or fruit fields, hauling, sorting, sweating. Your fingers got cut, your back hurt. You kept going. You didn't ask how long. No one counted hours. They only counted coins. You were 12 or maybe 10. Didn't matter. Your birth certificate was somewhere in a drawer no one opened anymore. Some nights you did homework by candlelight while your mother sewed patches on patches. Other nights you sat around the radio listening to voices that sounded rich just because they weren't broken. You wanted to laugh at the comedy shows, sometimes you did, but mostly you just listened. Not to the jokes, to the life on the other side of the speaker. A life with music and applause and people who weren't rationing joy. You didn't know if you'd graduate. You didn't think that far ahead. You only thought about tomorrow, whether there'd be work, whether there'd be dinner, whether the teacher would notice if your shoes didn't match again. Because in the Great Depression, being a kid didn't mean being carefree. It just meant being small while the world collapsed around you. After a day of pretending to be older than you are, your stomach reminds you that no matter how grown up you try to be, you are still hungry. Not metaphorically, not poetically, physically. Deep in your ribs, where the ache curls up and waits for whatever scrap of nourishment might come its way. You head home as the light fades, the sky turning that pale grey colour that doesn't so much announce nightfall as surrender to it. Inside, the house smells like desperation dressed up as cooking. Something's boiling, but it's mostly water again. Your mother stands at the stove with her arms crossed, staring into the pot like maybe she can guilt it into becoming something better. She won't say it out loud, but you can tell from the way she stirs. There's no meat, no vegetables, just broth, or what passes for it. Maybe there's a bit of onion, maybe a potato skin if you're lucky. She added a pinch of salt she bartered from the neighbour upstairs for half a bar of soap. The same neighbour who used to host dinner parties. Now she tears newspaper into strips to help the fire breathe. The table is already set. Not because there is a feast coming, but because pretending matters. 4 chipped plates, mismatched utensils. The last of the bread, so thin, it's almost transparent, sits on a dented tin plate like it's ashamed to be seen. Your father sits quietly, his face drawn, his hands calloused and idle. He used to come home smelling like factory grease and tobacco. Now he smells like the cold. He doesn't ask what's for dinner. He knows better. Everyone waits for your mother to sit. When she finally does, it's like a ceremony. Bowls are passed, liquid poured, no one takes too much. Your brother slurps quickly, like if he stops for a second, someone might take it away. Your sister eats slowly, deliberately, like she's trying to trick her stomach into thinking it's full. You chew your bread as long as possible. It doesn't taste like much. It doesn't have to. It just has to exist. There is no second helping. There hasn't been in months. Sometimes there's dessert, but not tonight. The sugar ran out weeks ago. The apples rotted before you could do anything with them. Someone mentions the neighbour's chickens, and everyone goes quiet. You know what they're thinking. You're thinking it too. Afterward, your mother scrapes the bowls with a spoon, collecting every last drop. Nothing gets thrown out. Nothing gets wasted. The scraps go into a jar labelled soup base, which is just a kind way of saying tomorrow's maybe. Your father folds his napkin like it matters. Your sister stares at the flickering gaslight. Your brother yawns. And just like that, dinner is over. Not satisfying, not filling, just. Over because in the Great Depression, dinner isn't a meal, it's a ritual. A reminder that you're still here. Still trying, still pretending water can taste like something other than hunger. After dinner, you lie back on the floor because that's what's left. The bed is taken, the couch is taken, the air is taken. You close your eyes and try not to think about your stomach, still echoing with emptiness, or the way your brother breathes like he's carrying extra weight in his lungs. The gaslight flickers low. Your mother hums a lullaby she barely remembers the words to. And somewhere down the street you hear the faint, distant rumble of a train. Not the romantic kind. Not the kind that takes you to big cities with lights and jazz and opportunity. This one is carrying men like you. Boys like you, people who didn't wait for a miracle. People who climbed aboard and left hunger behind. Or tried to. The first time you thought about it, it was just a fantasy, riding the rails. Like the outlaws in storybooks, wind in your hair, no walls, no curfews, just freedom. But when the cupboard stays empty long enough, and your father stops looking you in the eye, and your mother starts talking about hope, like it's a visitor who never stays long, fantasy becomes plan. You whisper it to your friend in the alley behind the grocery. He's thinking about it too. You both nod like maybe. This means you're brave, not just desperate. A few days later, you're walking along the tracks at dawn, backpack slung over your shoulder, full of nothing useful. Half a loaf of dry bread, 2 shirts, a photo folded until the corners broke off. The steel rails hum beneath your feet. You follow them like they know where they're going. You find the yard, crouch low, wait for the right car, boxcars, empty coal cars, anything that looks like shelter. The train doesn't stop for you. It barely slows. You run, jump, grab, pull. It's clumsy. It's terrifying. But you're on. Inside, it's dark and cold and full of strangers, boys your age, men twice it. All of them with the same look in their eyes, tired, cautious and hungry. Someone offers you a piece of jerky. It's tough as nails, but you thank him like he gave you gold. The man across from you says he's headed to Colorado, says they've got work picking beets. The kid beside him says California's better. Apples, peaches, oranges, fruit that grows right off the trees. You nod like you believe it. The train rattles through miles of forgotten America, burned fields, broken houses, water towers with faded town names no one stops at anymore. Sometimes you ride for hours in silence. Other times someone sings. Not loud, just enough to remind everyone they're still people. There's no ticket, no schedule, just hope and motion. And when the train finally stops near a new town, you hop off and start again. You ask about work. You sleep under stars. You share fires with men who have names you'll never remember. Because in the Great Depression, the only thing moving faster than hunger is a train headed anywhere else. You're back off the train now. Or maybe it left you. Maybe you stayed in one town too long, chasing a job that never existed. And when you came back, the boxcars had moved on without you. That's how it is out here. Nothing waits. Not trains, not food, not luck. You walk back toward the road, boots held together by string, and you see something new. A group of men clearing brush, building fences, digging a ditch that looks like it's been designed by someone who's never held a shovel. They're working, but it's strange, controlled, organized, not desperate. You ask what it is. Someone says, CCC. Someone else says, New Deal. You say nothing, but your stomach starts paying attention. Back home, or what's left of it, posters are going up. Men with hard hats and square jaws and broad American shoulders. They're painting murals in post offices. They're planting trees, laying roads, hauling bricks, WPA, PWA, NRA, initials multiplying like weeds. Your father reads about them in the newspaper he didn't buy, just borrowed from the stoop. Relief programs, he mutters, almost under his breath, like saying it too loud will make it disappear. Your mother nods but doesn't smile. She's heard too many promises, seen too many headlines that only applied to other people. But things are changing, even if the change moves slow and limps when it walks. The government is handing out jobs. Not great ones, not permanent, but jobs. $1 a day to swing a pickaxe or clear a trail in the woods. Food tokens for the children, free lunches at school that don't come with shame stapled to the tray. Farmers are getting loans again, maybe not enough, but more than zero. And someone's fixing the roof on the town hall for the first time in a decade. You apply for a WPA job and wait in line so long. The sun moves across the sky like it is mocking you. The man behind the desk doesn't smile, but he stamps something and hands it over. You'll be working on a road 2 towns over. It pays just enough to feed a family slowly. You tell your father. He claps you on the back like he's trying not to cry. It's the first time he's touched you in weeks. Still, it isn't magic. The lines for bread are still there. The foreclosures haven't stopped. The old woman next door still lost her house last week and moved in with her niece, who already had 5 people in 2 rooms. Not everyone qualifies. Not everyone gets a job. And even if they do, 1 shift missed and you're out again. It's a safety net made of loose thread. But it's something. It's not hope exactly, but it's close. It's structure. It's routine. It's men building things instead of sitting on curbs waiting for the world to remember them. And in the Great Depression, even a ditch dug by strangers feels like progress. Even a paycheck with a Roosevelt stamp on it feels like something that just might last. For now, you come home from digging ditches with dirt under your nails, and a paycheck that feels both too small and too miraculous to complain about. Your shoulders ache, your boots are wet, and your mother's voice greets you before the door even closes. She's humming again, quiet, but steady, stirring a pot of something that might taste like dinner if you close your eyes. The house still smells like the same 6 ingredients it always does. But tonight, there's something different in the air, something lighter. Your little brother's face is glowing. He points to the radio. President's gonna talk, he says. Then music, real music. You gather around like it's a fireplace. The radio sits on a shelf like royalty, cracked wood, dusty dial, always a little too quiet or a little too loud. You fiddle with the knob until the static sharpens into a voice. Deep, calm, familiar now. Roosevelt again, talking about work and fear and progress. Your father listens without blinking. Your mother keeps stirring, but slower. No one says much, you don't have to. You all know that the world is still broken, but at least someone's trying to hold the pieces. When he finishes, there's a pause, a crackle, and then a swing band bursts through the speaker like it owns the room. Your brother starts tapping his feet. Your sister grabs a wooden spoon and spins in circles until she laughs. You lean back, eyes closed, letting the trumpet wash over you, like a warm bath you can't afford. For 10 minutes, you're not poor, you're not tired, you're not thinking about rent or rations or rationed joy. You're just there, present, breathing to the beat. Sometimes the movies are even better, a nickel if you can spare it. 2 hours of shadows flickering across a giant white screen while strangers forget how hard their lives are. You sit in the dark and watch men in tuxedos solve problems with witty dialogue and women in gowns descend staircases you can't believe are real. They never worry about dinner. They never skip meals. They never lose everything overnight. You know it's fake. You don't care. You're not here for truth. You're here to remember what smiling feels like. Vaudeville still makes the rounds if you are in the right town. Or maybe there is a park concert, a traveling preacher, a magic show with doves that don't look especially magical. You go anyway, because it's something, because it is not work. Because in a world that is shrinking, even a laugh that only lasts a minute feels like a rebellion. You play cards by candlelight, you tell stories on porches, you listen to the neighbor's old records when he's not too drunk to let them spin. You survive by making space for joy, even when joy feels like a luxury you shouldn't touch. Because in the Great Depression, entertainment isn't about escaping life. It is about remembering it's still worth living. Even if just for one dance, one joke, one song that drowns out the silence for a little while, after the radio fades to silence, and the last laugh dies in your chest. You sit by the window and look out at the street. There's a boy standing under the street lamp with a flower in his hand, wilting, stolen, maybe both. He's shifting on his heels, nervous. The girl opens her door, steps out in a dress that's been mended so many times. It's more thread than fabric, but she's smiling like it's silk. He offers the flower. She takes it, and just like that they're walking down the sidewalk, like they don't know what decade it is, like the world isn't falling apart, like love isn't another thing in short supply. You wonder how they do it, how anyone does it. You haven't felt beautiful in months, not with your patched sleeves and worn out shoes and skin dry from washing in cold water, not when the mirror's cracked and the only thing you own that smells nice is a bar of soap you only use for Sundays. But people fall in love anyway, in kitchens, in breadlines, between shifts at the relief office. Somehow, even now, someone looks at someone else and sees more than what's missing. Your sister met someone at the library, what's left of it. He was reading a farming manual like it was poetry. They talked over borrowed books and shared pencils. One day he brought her a peach pit on a string. Said it was all he could afford, but he wanted her to have something. She wore it like a diamond. You laughed, then you cried, then you laughed again. Because what else is there? Courting looks different now. No dinners out, no candy boxes, no dancing unless the radio's working and the furniture's pushed back. You go for walks. You talk. You write letters even when the postage hurts. You fall in love slowly because everything moves slowly now, like the world's underwater and nothing can be rushed without breaking. Marriage still happens. People still get married in backyards and borrowed churches wearing second-hand suits and dresses made from curtain panels. There's no ring sometimes, just a promise, no honeymoon. Just another Monday, but the vows feel heavier, more sacred, because staying together now means sharing cold nights, lean months, and one pair of gloves between you. Of course, not everyone makes it. Stress doesn't just break the bank, it breaks people. Some couples unravel like threadbare socks, quietly, sadly, inevitably. Others fight louder, more often over money, over space, over silence. But then someone offers a hand instead of a door, and somehow the fight becomes a conversation, and the conversation becomes a compromise. And you realize even love has learned how to stretch. Because in the Great Depression, love doesn't show up in grand gestures or candlelit tables. It shows up in shared spoons and saved crusts, in laughter during blackout nights, and hands held on long walks home. It's not fragile, it can't afford to be. It's the one thing no one's figured out how to ration. Not yet. You think about the couple from last night, her in that curtain dress, him with the flower missing half its petals, and you wonder if they still believe in the future, not the glossy kind from before the crash, with dreams printed on advertisements and goals shaped like corner offices, but the quiet kind, the kind that gets built slowly in borrowed rooms, under leaking roofs, with hands that don't stop shaking even after the workday ends. You want to ask them. You don't. You just watch them disappear around the corner and hope they've figured out something. The rest of you haven't. At home, your mother hums again. It's always the same tune. No words, just a melody that sounds like it's holding on to something. Maybe memory, maybe habit. She stirs the same pot, folds the same linens, kisses your brother on the head with the same tired grace. She never says, "We're going to be okay." Not anymore, she says. "We'll see," or "maybe next week." But sometimes you catch her looking out the window, like she's watching for a sign, not a miracle, just a hint that tomorrow won't be worse than today. Your father still reads the paper every morning, even though it's mostly bad news written in small fonts. He doesn't comment much. He just circles job postings and folds the page like something will come of it. Once a week, he gets a letter from a friend who moved out west. They write about picking fruit and sleeping in fields, and the sun being cruel but consistent. Your father reads those letters like scripture. Sometimes he folds them into his wallet, like if he carries them long enough, they might bloom into tickets. And then there's Roosevelt on the radio again. Fireside chats that feel like someone finally talking to you instead of about you. His voice is calm, even when the words aren't. He says things will improve, that people are working, that the government sees you. Whether you believe him or not doesn't matter. What matters is the way your neighbors listen. Hunched around radios with their hats in their hands and tears they pretend. Your little brother drew a picture yesterday. A house, a tree, a sun with an enormous smile. He gave it to your mother like it was a blueprint. She hung it above the stove, right next to the jar of saved buttons, right below the crack in the wall that won't stop growing. And for some reason, it made you want to sit down and breathe, just for a second, because hope hasn't left. It's just quieter now. It walks slower. It doesn't raise its voice or wear bright colors. It shows up in half loaves and hand-me-downs. In neighbors who share without asking why. In letters from far away and songs. You hum without remembering the lyrics. In the way you wake up every morning, still here, still trying, still waiting for a better version of, we'll see. You wake up to another grey morning and realize something strange. The world, for all its broken pieces, hasn't exploded. Not yet. Not in fire or fists or banners, waving above marching crowds. For all the hunger, for all the empty hands and empty pockets, people are still standing in lines instead of storming buildings. No riots in the streets, no torches, just more lines. You'd think something would have snapped by now. You'd think someone would have said, "Enough," loud enough to make the ground shake. But the streets stay quiet. The desperation stays dressed in its Sunday best. It's not that people aren't angry. They are. But the anger is tired. It is quiet. It comes out in muttered curses under breath, in slammed doors, in the way a man tightens his jaw when his kid asks for milk. It shows up in the spaces between words, in the long pauses between sentences. The country is simmering, but it never quite boils over. Maybe because everyone's too worn out to fight. Maybe because they still remember what war tasted like, even a decade out from the last one. Maybe because there's still just enough bread, just enough dignity, just enough Roosevelt on the radio to make people keep walking, instead of burning it all down. Unions grow stronger. Yes, protests happen. Men march with signs that say we want work, not we want blood. And when police show up, batons swinging, the crowds scatter more from habit than fear. There's talk in the factories, in the fields. But talk doesn't pay rent, and nobody's handing out revolutions with soup. So they wait. They work when they can. They mutter when they can't. They hold on, not because they believe everything's fine, but because letting go would take too much energy. The truth is, the system bent until it groaned. But it didn't break. It rebranded. It patched holes with programs and acronyms and speeches full of recovery and reform. It sent out men in suits to talk to men with nothing and called it progress. And somehow it was just enough. Just barely, because you're still here. Your neighbor is still here. The man who sells pencils at the corner still waves to you each morning, even when he doesn't sell a thing. That wave might be the last thing holding him together. And then there is fear. Fear of change that might make things worse. Fear that shaking the tree will bring it crashing down on top of everyone. Fear of communists, of radicals, of the unknown. You hear it in barbershops, in breadlines, in church. At least we're not like them, someone says. And no one ever really defines who them is. Just not us. Not here, not yet. So, no, there wasn't a revolution. Not the loud kind. But every bowl shared, every shirt mended, every hand extended across a fence line. Those were small uprisings, quiet rebellions. The kind that don't make headlines but keep people alive. And maybe that was enough. Or maybe it was just survival, dressed up as patience. The strange thing is, it doesn't start with marching bands or cheers. It starts with headlines. Names of places most people can't pronounce. Bombs dropped on cities they've never seen. A slow, creeping noise behind everything else. Whispers in barber shops. Tense pauses on the radio. Men leaning closer to the paper. Eyes scanning the front page like it might hold their future. And eventually, it does. One day, just like that, the country's at war. Not metaphorically, not in slogans or speeches, actually, fully, terrifyingly at war. At first, it feels far away. Europe, Asia, places across the ocean where bad things are happening to people you'll never meet. But then the government starts asking for things: steel, rubber, time. And when it asks for sons, you understand just how close it's become. The depression doesn't vanish overnight. It doesn't even say goodbye, but it begins to loosen its grip the moment factories start running again. This time not for toasters or radios, but for tanks and uniforms. The man down the street who hadn't worked since 31 now has grease under his fingernails again. Your cousin signs up to ship out, not because he's a patriot exactly, but because the army pays in cash and 3 meals a day. Suddenly, people have jobs, real ones, making things, building things, fixing things. It's not joyful work, but it's steady, reliable. The sound of a town's factory whistle goes from being a sad memory to a promise that someone somewhere is getting paid today. You see lines again, but they're different now. Not for soup, for enlistment, for ration books, for war bonds. The country is still rationing, still stretching, but now it's doing it for a reason everyone can agree on. There's an enemy with a face now. There's direction, purpose, and for a lot of folks, that feels like air returning to their lungs. The boys who ride the rails are riding trains again, but this time in uniform. Some go to boot camps, others to shipyards. You hear stories of men who hadn't had steady work in a decade now earning more in a month than they did in the last 5 years combined. You hear of women taking jobs in factories, tying their hair back and learning how to build planes. You hear of black families moving north to fill jobs they were never allowed to have before, and no one's calling it justice, but they're calling it something. And you still remember the long winters, the cold bread, the nights pretending not to cry because everyone else was already pretending not to notice. But now, for the first time in years, you feel like things are moving forward, even if they're moving towards something terrible. Because in the Great Depression, nothing happened quickly. But war. War is fast, it's brutal, it's monstrous. But it's also a machine. And for the first time in a long time, the machine needs you. Not just your patience, not just your suffering, but your hands. And that changes everything. When the war finally ends, it doesn't feel like a parade. It feels like a long, aching exhale, the kind that leaves you dizzy. People cheer, yes, flags wave, horns blare in the streets, but behind every smile is someone who's not coming home. And behind every return is someone who left a version of themselves overseas and didn't bring it back. You stand in the crowd clapping with everyone else, but part of you is quiet. You're thinking about everything that came before the uniforms, before the medals, before the banners, the hunger, the cold, the silence. the waiting. The factories don't shut down this time. They shift from tanks to toasters, from boots to baby strollers. There's work now. Real work. A paycheck you don't have to line up for. A job that doesn't vanish with the season. There's meat in the stores again. Shoes in your size. Gas that doesn't come with a ration card. You still pause before spending, though. You still cut the mold off bread instead of throwing it away. You still feel guilty when your belly is full. The habits haven't left you. The fear hasn't either. Your father is older now, even if the calendar says only a few years have passed. He stands straighter than he did during the worst of it, but something in his eyes is permanent. Your mother keeps a can of flour tucked in the back of the cupboard, just in case. She doesn't talk about it much, but some mornings you catch her counting the tins. Like old routines still have a job to do. Your little brother is taller, louder, and doesn't remember the bread lines the way you do, but he flinches when a siren goes off. He still folds his socks in perfect squares like a soldier, and you? You're different, not broken exactly, but shaped. Bent by the weight of what you carried. You know how to stretch, how to wait, how to endure. You can go without. Not because you want to, but because you know you can. You don't expect life to be easy, just fair, just steady. You've learned how to look for the small signs. The steam rising from a warm cup of coffee, the sound of laughter through an open window. The soft way the morning light lands on a clean floor. Those things matter more now. Not because they're grand, but because they're real. No one hangs a medal around your neck for surviving a depression. There's no headline, no ticker tape. You just keep going. You pay your rent. You fix your roof. You teach your kids how to plant beans and patch socks and never waste anything, not even a moment. The worst is over. But it's never completely gone. Because in the Great Depression, you didn't just lose money. You lost time, pride, and sometimes people. But you learned. You changed. You endured. And now somehow you're still here, which might be the most extraordinary thing of all. So now as you settle deeper into your blankets, and the hum of the past fades into the quiet of the room, remember this. The Great Depression wasn't just a moment in history. It was a million quiet acts of survival. It was grit without glory. It was hope, even when hope had to whisper. And through all the hunger, dust, and silence, people endured. Just like you're doing now, one breath, one night, one tomorrow at a time. Sleep well. You've walked through a storm tonight, and like them, you've made it through, sort of. But that's enough. Good night.